So here now we had a new element, a new challenge for us when we were creating this product. Make it extremely lightweight, make it extremely stiff, but also add aerodynamic qualities to every single component on the bike. So those forces all work against each other. Anytime you add aero, it's going to add weight. But we also needed it to be stiff, but we also needed it to be lightweight. So really, this was 5 years in the making of getting all of those elements right. So efficiency was number one, aerodynamics was our second priority, and then the third quality we talk about is really the control or disc brake integration and all of the componentry as well. A really tall order.
This is the Ride Giant podcast. My name is Patrick Van Horn, and coming to you today from my home. Physical distancing in this era of COVID-19. Like you, I am working from home today to produce this podcast. But luckily we have Zoom, and luckily we have Andrew Juskaitis from Giant Global with us today to talk about a terrific product that's in the stand behind him, and that's the brand new TCR Advanced SL. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
Hey, Patrick, how's it going? Greetings from Colorado.
Yeah, greetings from Southern California. Great to see you. Let's talk about this new bike. This is a big deal for Giant, launching this bike now.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think it's the one product that everyone would agree to that this is our seminal product. This is our most famous, our most time-tested, our most engineering-backed product that is in our product line and has had just such a rich heritage of history behind it.
And which generation of this, again, of the TCR?
Yeah, this is the 9th generation of TCR in our line. And if you take a look at some of the materials that we're producing right now, you can see the lineage of how it's progressed all the way from 1997 all the way up to 2021.
This is a bike, the design of this bike, the TCR, just for those people who don't know, really revolutionized bicycle design and changed the look of the Pro Peloton.
Yeah, it did. It really did. You know, 97 was first production year of this. There were about 2 years ahead of that where a lot of the R&D went into. And really, it is the brainchild of Mike Burrows, who was brought on to work with Giant with this crazy idea that a traditional bike, and at the time, if you remember, 95, 94, road bikes came in some brands had up to 10 sizes in their line in 1 centimeter increments, right? And the horizontal top tube and all of that. That was just traditional road bike design. Mike Burrows came to the table with a revolutionary design of really that sloping top tube and what we now call compact road. And in 1997, when TCR first came out, there were only 3 frame sizes. There was a small, a medium, and a large. And in order to fit the bell curve of all the riders out there, if you remember back in the day working at a shop, you would fit the rider using a different length stem. And I think there were 7 different seat posts that were used to help dial in the fit of those 3 frames. Obviously, compact road has matured through the time. And now we have many more sizes available, making sure that everyone can be accommodated.
Later in this podcast, we'll hear from Mike Burrows in a presentation that he made at the Giant booth at Interbike in 1998. That was the year that it was, I think, officially rolled out for the public to see for the first time. But up to that time, Team Once, the Spanish national team, had been riding on the bike and had had a lot of input in the design of the bike and the way it handled and the fact that it was lighter, stiffer, faster. To this day, Giant has always relied on its partnerships with pro teams to develop this bike.
Yeah, absolutely. With a product like TCR, it is the total race bike. And in order to back up that claim, we work very closely with some of the world's best racers to provide the type of feedback we need to make sure that the bike is up for that challenge, for the ability to win the overall at the Tour de France.
So let's talk about this brand new bike. There are some key changes in this, and there were some key elements that the design and engineering team now was trying to hit, some key targets they were trying to hit. What are those?
First and foremost, when we talk about TCR, we always talk about efficiency. And here at Giant and in a lot of the other bike world, when we talk about efficiency, we're always talking about the stiffness to weight ratio of the product. And so that literally means how much does the frame and fork, how much do they weigh versus how stiff they are. Now, it's really easy, as you know, to make a very light bike. It's pretty easy to make a very stiff bike. It's very, very difficult, and it's a massive challenge to make a bike that is both lightweight and is stiff. And again, when I'm talking about stiffness, I'm talking about the pedaling stiffness of the bike. So when you're in a sprint situation, when you're climbing up a hill, when you're out of the saddle or racing for that finish line, you don't want the frame to yield side to side. You want it to be as true in a straight line as possible. Yielding is wasting of energy. So in making an extremely light bike, that was obviously our goal with this latest generation of the TCR, and we were able to save 140 grams from the previous generation to the one that's sitting here behind me. But we're also able to keep the same amount of stiffness that we had out of that last generation by saving a lot of weight as well. So we were able to achieve a tremendous amount of stiffness to weight ratio. But honestly, that wasn't good enough. That's what everybody expected, and that's what we're able to deliver phase one of this product. Really, phase two, and this is the trickiest part of the project, was introducing aerodynamic elements and an aerodynamic profile to every single tube shape that you see behind me. Now, if you're familiar with aerodynamic properties or aerodynamic bicycles of yesteryear, anytime you start to add shaping to a frame tube set, you're going to add weight. Obviously, the simplest, lightest tube shape is a round shape. Anytime you start to make that into an ellipse or any sort of sizing like that, you're going to add weight to the product. So here now we had a new element, a new challenge for us when we were creating this product. Make it extremely lightweight, make it extremely stiff, but also add aerodynamic qualities to every single component on the bike. So those forces all work against each other. Anytime you add aero, it's going to add weight. But we also needed it to be stiff, but we also needed it to be lightweight. So really, this was 5 years in the making of getting all of those elements right. So efficiency was number one, aerodynamics was our second priority, and then the third quality we talk about is really the control or disc brake integration and all of the componentry as well. A really tall order.
And as far as the TCR goes, going back for a second to aerodynamics, as far as the TCR goes, this was really the first time that this bike went into a wind tunnel and was looked at through CFD as far as how does the wind affect it when it's in a real world situation?
For sure. I will say that, in working with almost all the generations of TCR, this isn't the absolute first time that TCR has been in the wind tunnel, but I will say this is the first time that we designed specifically for aerodynamics. So in the past, we've had TCR with athletes on it in the wind tunnel trying to improve their position, trying to get the bar shape and all of those little details right. This is the first time, like you said, CFD or computational fluid dynamics, where from the ground up, the frame and fork was designed with aerodynamic qualities integrated right into it. So yes.
There were a few new layup techniques and a few new cutting techniques. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely amazing. And I really mean that. We go to Taiwan quite frequently, and every chance I get, I'm always into the factory because I like to see what's going on. And you can find out a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff if you take a little walk around the factory on your own. Over the past 2 years, as I've walked through the factory, it's always been 100% layup. The actual production of the frame has always been done by hand. And that's one of the things we've prided ourselves on, for sure, that the hand layup that goes into every one of our frames is second to none in the industry. But for the last 2 years, I've seen bit by bit, slowly but surely, integration of robotic assembly into the process. And that's been a really, really interesting, I'd say, phenomenon or engineering development from Giant. So why have we, I'm not saying we've walked away from hand laying up, but we've introduced some elements of the frame to be produced by a robot. Why do we do that? Because when you think about it, hand layup, as beautiful as it is and as time consuming as it is, at the end of the day, you are dealing with a human being. And with a human being, there is always going to be a little bit of a tolerance as to exactly where you place those pieces. And because of that tolerance, we always had to make the pieces, the individual pieces that go into the frame, and there are over 500 of them, a little bit bigger to accommodate a little bit of that plus or minus every time that piece is laid up. Think about this. We're now able to laser cut the pieces to exact size that we need them to be. And it takes a robotic arm for precise placement every single time. There is no more plus or minus. It's exact every single time to make sure that each of those pieces is a little bit smaller, make sure each of those pieces is a little bit lighter to build an overall lighter, more exacting frame.
Going back to just for a moment on the stiffness to weight ratio, the TCR has always been one of those bikes that as soon as you step down on the pedal, you feel it go forward because of that stiffness to weight ratio. This bike, I'm assuming, continues that or betters that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. As I said in the beginning, the goal here was to save weight, but also increase, or at the very least, keep the same amount of stiffness to weight ratio, which is legendary with TCR. And so, like I said before, it's really hard to make a light bike that is also very, very stiff. This bike certainly achieves that.
And the team has been riding this bike, Team CCC, since when?
Yeah, so they've had in their hands prototypes for over 2 years, but for the last year, they've been actually publicly racing this product. And whether or not the public saw it, it was out there in the public field. One of the reasons we had to have it out there in the public field was because, as this being an Olympic year, you have to race on product the previous year in order for it to be accepted into an Olympics year. So our goals with racing with the team were twofold. One, to make sure that the product works for its intended use. And then second, make sure that it's right for approval for the Olympics that are now postponed till next summer, but were supposed to be this summer.
One last thing I'll have you point out on that bike, because as the lay observer, just looking at that bike behind you, will think, well, it doesn't look so different than the previous iteration of the TCR. There are some key differences in the layup, and one of them is right on that head tube. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Patrick, is that, for many folks who might have this bike in a shop and you put it up against the old bike and somebody walks by and they're like, which one's the new one? Well, take a closer look, take a deep breath and take a closer look, and you'll notice that every single tube shape on this bike is different from the previous generation. And like you pointed out, the biggest evidence of that is right here, and that's here at the back of the head tube. This is an element that we call a truncated ellipse, and this is the most advanced way we know possible how to create a frame that is aerodynamic. Truncated ellipse back here, which is the really flat section here, which is also found on the down tube, which is also found a little bit on the top tube. You'll even find it on the new vector seat post as well. Truncated ellipse, meaning it has a very flat back to it. The reason we do that is because if you wanted to make the most aerodynamic product on the market, it would probably be a teardrop, a traditional teardrop shape. Teardrop is great when wind is coming directly at you, but as we all know, when we ride on the road, it's extremely rare that wind is coming directly at you at what we call 0-degree yaw. Wind is coming at you from all directions. Truncated ellipse best addresses wind coming at you from 15 degrees plus or 15 degrees minus, so a wide range of that wind coming towards the bike. Truncated ellipse is the most aerodynamic design that we are capable of producing. And again, like I said, you're going to find it on many of the major tubes on this bicycle as well, including the integrated seat mast.
We talked earlier about the history of this bike and just how different it was at the time. This is a soundbite from a presentation that designer Mike Burrows, who worked with Giant in coming up with the total compact road, the compact road frame design. This is a soundbite from a presentation that Mike made to folks who were walking around the Giant booth at Interbike in 1998. Let's give a listen.
The starting point really goes way back to 82, and I was building little baby time trial bikes, 16-inch frame, small front wheel, for no other purpose than to just go fast in a time trial velodrome. And it didn't go any further until I got the job with Giant in 94, because I'd never wanted a road bike. I'd never done serious road racing. So I suddenly remembered, hey, the little tiny frame concept sort of worked for time trialing and seemed to work for mountain biking. So I got one of these, the MCM Team mountain bike frame, 16-inch, sent over to me, built it up as a road bike. If you put a pair of road forks in that, the front drops down and you get really neat road angles. It's just an instant conversion. You need a little aluminium block to mount your rear brake. Delivered it into Lelystad in 94 and said, look at this. And they looked at it because they recognised their mountain bike frame and yeah, what is it? Well, it's sort of an idea for a sort of little bicycle thing that might work. And that was it. That's really what I thought. It just sort of makes sense. riding position is the most important element in comfort and performance. Absolutely, there's no question.
Is it true other companies are copying the compact road?
I was in Spain the other day. I went over for the Classico, one of the nice sides of my job. It's riding around Spain, and we had a 2000 rider, like sort of sporty fun ride. And now they think, hey, TCR. No, it's not. Chromoly, same colour scheme. They've stolen the on-fake colour scheme even. But fine, it's a compliment. You know, we're going in the right direction. Pantani, the bike they're selling here, is not the Pantani replica bicycle. Pantani started the season on that bike with a level top tube, saw the team bikes, went away and had them building a sloping top tube bike. You look at the shots from the tour, it's sloping top tube. So, yeah, we're setting the trend. They are now copying us.
And if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then consider us blushing, because that changed the peloton. The TCR, every other race bike from that moment forward, most every other race bike has that sloping top tube.
Yeah, it is. And that's really, you know, the proof is in the pudding. If it was just a marketing experience or kind of a design experiment, it wouldn't have lasted. Well, here we are going into 2021, and if you look at the local bike shop or you look in the pro peloton, every single bike copies that compact road design. It's just proof that it works. It's lighter, it's stiffer overall, and it can be more aerodynamic if, you know, created in a right way, for sure, which is what we're seeing back here.
Andrew, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you very much for taking the time out. The bike is beautiful. Our design team did just a great job with CMG, and the engineers really just nailed it. It'll be interesting to see what the reaction is to this bike, and I hope that we see the team racing on it again this year sometime. I hope we're able to get to some races this year.
Yeah, we certainly do. We're looking forward to getting out there. Like I said, it's been raced on very selectively in the past. We look at having the entire team fielding this particular product, getting out there and winning some races on this product. So we're super excited about it.
Andrew Juskaitis, Giant Global Marketing, thank you very much, man. Great seeing you.
Thanks, Patrick.